Hello, boys and girls. I know we haven't done your favorite type of videos for a very long time, so here it is, the unboxing. We just received our Hegel H400 order. So some of you will know the H390 integrated amp was recently discontinued because the 400 was coming out. Well, it's finally arrived. There have been some reviews, but literally no shipments from the factory other than, I guess, for the reviewers. So anyway, we just got them. Here's one. We're gonna, Curtis is going to unbox it while I talk about some of the details, just because I'm still recovering, so I don't want to do anything that will make me fall on my face. All right, Curtis, go ahead. And while he's doing that, let me talk about some of the details. The H400 is $84.95 Canadian or $69.95, so 7,000 US dollars. It's rated 250 watts per channel into 8 ohms and stable into 2 ohms. 4,000 damping factor. Dual mono, but I think it uses one transformer, perhaps with 2 separate windings. And it has a streamer built in, it's got a DAC built in, it supports AirPlay, Spotify Connect, Roon Ready, Tidal Connect, Google Cast, UPnP, etc., etc. It's got auto digital source switching. So in other words, except for USB. So let's say you've got a separate digital source, maybe even a separate streamer connected to the SPDIF connector, and it starts playing, the unit will automatically switch over to that digital input. Again, except for apparently the USB. Almost all the inputs can be configured for home theater bypass, so that's good. So if you are planning to use this with your home theater system, that's how it works. And it can also be set up so that your TV's remote can function as the integrated amps remote. So it will actually control the volume control and, I guess, inputs as well. All right, he's got that open. So let's have a look and see what this is. H400 user manual. Nice. Small box. And of course, I'm just flipping through this, pretending that I actually read these things, and I don't. Mike is laughing. But anyway, it's nice that it's got a nice remote manual, and of course, you can probably also download this from the website. Ah, look at this. So Hegel comes with 2 types of remote, plastic and the metal. This is all metal, so it's nice, solid. I've mentioned in a previous review that the one thing I don't like about this remote is that, number one, all the buttons are the same size, and there is no, from what I can tell, difference in terms of the buttons. So so volume is right over here, up and down. You could easily press the wrong button, I guess, because there's no, it's not different tactilely. And then, of course, the other thing is that the text is a bit small for me, and there's no backlighting. I'm being fussy. I know. All right, but you get all these things matter. Battery for the remote and standard power cable. All right, so that's that. Nice. Okay, so that's 44 pounds. He just lifted as if it weighed nothing. The guy is stronger than he looks. How many Chinese boys does it take to unpack a Hegel? Okay, so here's some silica. If you like coffee with silica, we have some. So right off the bat, there's a couple of things. I've just noticed that the holes are oval, as opposed to, I think, circular back then. Just peeking through, it looks pretty neat, which is nice. Maybe one of these days we'll take the cover off. From what I understand, the front is actually a solid block of aluminum that's been cut, so quite nice. Let's maybe put it over here. This way we can see it properly, and maybe even plug it in. I think we've got a power cord somewhere. Okay, there we go. So, as with all the Hegels, it is very minimalistic in design, which I like, except there's one thing. And for those of you who've watched our Hegel reviews and unboxings in the past, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's no indication of what model this is. Now, as a buyer, you don't care because you know what you bought. That's a Hegel H400. In the store, some of their models have the same size chassis, and that makes it a bit of a pain for us because when we need to do a demo, you don't know what you're doing until you don't know which one to grab unless you turn it around and on the back it says. Anyway, that's a 400. So once it's plugged in, you see a little light over there, and then there's a little switch right at the bottom. You push it, and there it is, Hegel. And oh, another thing I should mention, you can set this up so that when it turns on at a specific volume, or it goes up to a certain maximum volume as well. So you don't have to worry if you have kids and they're going to turn it up past that and screw it up. Of course, if your kids are anything like you, they'll be smart enough to know how they can bypass that. And of course, this is your source input, so switching between that, all these different ones, and the volume. And I understand that the buttons can also be pushed in. I've never done that, so let's see what that does. Oh, it does. Okay, so how come it's not doing anything? Okay, this is where reading the manual will be helpful. Apparently, from what I understand, pushing these buttons allows you to get into the menu, and then you can adjust different things. Now I'm really curious, but I don't want to read the manual. So how do we do this? Ah, hey! You just have to hold it for about 4 seconds. So I guess the idea is that you don't just bump into it and by accident you get into the menu. All right, let's see what it says. Info, hardware, version, network, sleep. Okay, and what else does it have? Network. So this allows you to switch the different things you want to adjust. Okay, so that's what we were talking about. So let's go back to auto. Auto in. So this is where it automatically switches between the different digital inputs as I was talking about, with the exception of USB. Volume. Okay, so it adjusts the volume control settings. So I presume that means when it wakes up and at the max volume, remote. Okay, and so this is where you can adjust, you can set it up so that your TV remote adjusts the Hegel's remote as well. And then home theater, so you can configure whichever input you want as home theater bypass. DAC loop. Okay, so what's really interesting is that although the DAC inside is very good, we'll talk about that in a moment, if you have a much better DAC that you're using, for example, an MSB, a DCS, whatever, you can program it so that the digital output goes straight into your DAC. And then finally a reset. And then exit. Okay, cool. Finally learned something. All right, so let's talk about the DAC that's in here. Some of you may remember during the lockdown, a company called AKM that supplies very good DAC chips to many of the companies in the audio industry had a fire. And so there was a huge problem with some of the companies that used the chip. Hegel was one of them. And so Hegel decided that they were going to switch over to a different DAC company, and they chose ESS Sabre. And now the ESS Sabre that they're using is the same one that's also used in their top of the line, the H600, but implemented differently. I don't know what the details are, but it's different. I believe the chip they're using is the 9038, which is, if not the top of the line, one of the top of the lines. And apparently, Hegel likes it so much they don't want to go back to the AKM. So that's one thing that's, oh, let's talk about the differences between the 400 and the 390. I've got my cheat sheet here. Let's see if okay, yes. So one major difference between the 390 and the 400 is the chipset. So the 390 was using the AKM, and the 400 is using the ESS Sabre. The voltage amplifier board is derived from the H600 in the case of the 400. So with the 600 uses a similar voltage amplifier board. There's apparently more streaming options on the 400 than the 390. And this is also room ready. So these are some of the differences. I forgot to check whether the difference in price was significant between the 390 and 400. I don't recall it to be, because I remember it being about the same. So I think that it's roughly similar between the 390 and the 400. Anyway, oh, let me show you the back. So I'm just going to turn this off. From what I understand, the back of this is similar, if not identical, to the 390. All right, so of course, these are your binding posts. And then over here, you have your line level outputs. So you could you notice that there's fixed and variable. So variable could be used to drive your subwoofer or to drive a second amplifier. And then fixed, of course, can go to a second zone or a preamplifier or something else. And then these are your analog inputs. So you've got balance inputs and 2 RCA inputs. And then finally, you've got your digital inputs over here. So, so actually, that's a digital output. So it's a SPDIF, BNC, and then these are your inputs. So BNC input, coax, it looks like, wow, 3 optical inputs, 3. USB, and then your network, you can connect your Ethernet here. So if you connect your Ethernet here, you can also do your software updates through it. And also, this acts as a streamer. So connection is very straightforward. One thing I must say, Hegel, for us anyway, has been incredibly reliable and very, very good. I can't remember any of the Hegels that we've sold that has an issue. That's not to say they haven't had issues. We have had to help maybe 2 or 3 clients look after a couple of small things, but ourselves, all the dozens and dozens of Hegels that we've sold, as far as I remember, none of them have required any kind of servicing. So great that way. Very reliable, will drive virtually any speaker you can possibly think of, with the exception of the H95, the smallest one. That one doesn't have that much current, so if you like to play loud, it will shut down when it overheats. But the 120 on up, they've been great. Great value for money because you've got so many features. Sonically, amazing. All of the Hegels have been consistently some of the best I've heard, especially if you like something that's tonally quite neutral, incredibly black background. Again, I don't know, something I don't know how to describe until you hear it. When you hear a Hegel and compare it to something else, it sounds as if the Hegel is quiet. There's no noise. And yet you put your ears to the speakers, and none of the other electronics generally have that kind of noise either. It's just that it produces this black background, and from that you get this emergence of sound, which is extraordinary. We're going to break it in, and then we're going to compare the 190V, which is the model below that, and compare the H600, which is the top of the line, because this is sort of in the middle, and then report back to you and tell you what we think of it. I'm quite excited. The 390 was certainly one of my favorite integrated amps, under $10,000. Wow. I remember, I think we did a comparison, or I don't know if we ever did, to the Macintosh MA352. I don't remember now. But there have been times where I preferred the 352, and other times I've preferred the Hegel 390. Certainly if I liked a lot of music that's more punchy and dynamic and loud volumes, the 390 did a better job overall. If I liked a slightly sweeter, warmer sound, a little bit more smooth and forgiving, the Macintosh was better. And now, of course, we have the Accuphase E280, also in the same price range. So we've probably got a lot of stuff that we can compare it to at some point. But good to know that it's now available. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you've got one, a 400, please leave your comments. Let us know what you think. If you've got the 390, tell us if you like it. If you don't have Hegels, you've heard them, you like them, you don't like them, again, share with us. Let us know what you think of Hegel. All right, thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.